Nigel Farage, he is a brash, loud, charismatic snake oil salesman. A sort of lifelong member of the establishment who's somehow managed to sort of convince millions of people that he's somehow on their side, on working class side. Every drawing I start with him in it is just him coming in disrupting the picture, basically. At any point he could just sort of come into the room with just like a loud noise and take over the room. So he's not a character, really. I'm Morten Morland. I am the political cartoonist for The Times and The Sunday Times. Let's take a look at some of my cartoons of Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage today made clear that he is planning what he called a revolt.
Farage will energise Reform UK.
I genuinely think we can get more votes in this election than the Conservative Party.
So in the 2024 election, Nigel Farage, after much denying that he was going to stand, said he would do anyway.
I'll be launching my candidacy at midday tomorrow in the Essex seaside town of Clapton.
This turned everything on its head because the other party leaders, for some reason, are terrified of Nigel Farage and what he's going to say, so they all kind of march to his tune, basically. This cartoon is from around election time. It's a bit of a cliche, but it sort of works for Nigel Farage because instead of the flute I can give him a dog whistle. And in the notes you can see that they spell out immigration, which is pretty much his single issue that he campaigns on. And then you have all the other party leaders and senior politicians just instantly turning heads and following him, which seems to be the way it goes every time. The Tories were going to campaign on defence, they were going to campaign on the NHS, there was various things that they were sort of planned out. And Starmer and Labour, they were going to do the economy, and all of a sudden, with Nigel Farage involved, the whole debate suddenly pivoted towards immigration again. And you have this colourful character. You know, he's very charismatic, and so he gets the media time, he gets the sort of airtime, and, you know, lots of voters like him, there's no denying that.
Is this not the most patriotic town in the whole of our country?
I tried to sort of show Farage's clownishness, so he's got this sort of jester look as well here. And people kind of fall for it. I think they fall for that confidence. And that sort of guy in the pub, you know, he just comes in and just steals the attention. In the background, you can see the sort of shops are shut, things aren't good in the land, yet that is his only focus, and that is what everyone else focuses on. You know, it's quite sad, really, for the state of politics. Purely visually, he is fantastic for cartoonists because he wears colourful clothes. You know, every other politician, they're pretty much black, blue or grey suits. The fact that he wears all these colourful clothes means that he's terrific for cartoonists because you're just desperate to use a bit of colour. It suits him, you know, it's like when he suddenly cares about farmers, he dresses up as a farmer and he kind of comes across as this believable farmer type, you know. He's probably never set foot on a farm, but he does it with complete confidence.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
Tonight there was one British MP who had a ringside seat.
Looking rather pleased. How are you feeling?
Oh, delighted, absolutely delighted.
2016, the first term of the Trump government, Nigel Farage clearly found a sort of kindred spirit in Trump. The right kind of populist, bombastic politician, the same as him, you know, around the time of Brexit. He clung on to Trump for his success. I think he liked being sort of looked at as, you know, Britain's Trump. So he paints himself as sort of Mr. Brexit and the big patriot and everything about, you know, it's about Britain all the way. And yet anything to do with Trump, and then all of a sudden Trump is right, America is right, you know, so it's a really peculiar way to be patriotic. And he literally piggybacks on Trump's success in this cartoon, and I think it's sort of is the way he's been operating in the last few years as well, just sort of constantly going back and forth to America, grifting, being on American TV, raising his own profile, looking like he's sort of a Britain's man in America, you know, talking about himself as could be the ambassador, you know, like he's got some special insight into Trump.
I think I could help smooth the relationship between Trump, the people he's going to appoint into senior roles in the administration, most of whom I also know. If I could be helpful as a bridge between the two, I would do it.
At the time, he'd lost control of Brexit really a little bit. You know, that wasn't his baby anymore. Lots of other people like Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson and Michael Gove had sort of stolen that bit. And so he needed that sort of relevance on the hat. Instead of make America great again. It says sort of make Nigel relevant again. You know, quite pathetic little naked figure riding on a muddy pig and just describing it as a beautiful silverback, and quite deliberately weak, like he probably couldn't walk by himself, physically showing the relationship between them, the contrast. I've drawn Trump as a pig a few times because this was at the time of all these scandals that would have just toppled any other politician. He is a pig in human form. When Trump was saying and doing and caught doing all these kind of like absolutely indefensible things, Nigel Farage said really quite icky things.
I don't think it was any one of us who haven't said or done things in the last decade we would not want to have been secretly recorded and put on the news.
He is still lauding him as this sort of great leader of men, which he ain't. In January 2025, Keir Starmer was sort of fairly embattled on many fronts. Lots of things he was trying to sort out, including black holes he was talking about and other issues. But there was also, at the same time, people like Elon Musk coming after them on Twitter or on X, talking about the grooming gangs and all of that stuff, and quite relentless. And Nigel Farage, being Nigel Farage, jumps right in there. And this was at the time where Nigel Farage was over in America talking to Elon Musk, and there was talk about the Reform Party getting a lot of money. They were going to fund it, you know, they were going to take over the whole thing. This particular cartoon is one of those where you combine news stories with other events that is not necessarily political or anything. So this was about Luke Littler winning the world championship in darts. He kept his concentration, he kept his cool, you know, under a lot of pressure. And so this was kind of what I was trying to show with Keir Starmer trying to keep his cool with all these people jumping in there as distractions. And that is Nigel Farage's speciality, you know, he's just putting people off their game. And Musk is the same. And so just draw the two of them as these kind of loud, annoying things right in his face. Whereas, you know, Kemi Badenoch, who should be the person who does that really, who's the sort of leader of the opposition, she's just stood in the background looking a bit gormless at a dart, wondering what it is. But Musk and Farage are quite effective in putting him off. In good Farage patriotic style, I have him with American flag shoes and his MAGA-sponsored shirt, holding his pint, obviously, which is very darty, and sort of balancing the Reform logo on his head, mouth wide open, going, ah, you know, that's basically all he does. And I have him wearing a lot of sort of American MAGA style clothes at the moment, because it's this sort of strange patriotism again, where his focus and his head is not in Clacton, you know, it's over in America, it's over by Trump's side. In this particular case, there was the link to Musk as well, and with all the money they supposedly were going to get, which never worked out because, of course, he fell out with Musk, as he falls out with everyone.
You're going to give Nigel Farage 80 million?
No. The beauty of drawing populist politicians like Nigel Farage is that they tend to take themselves quite seriously. And so they are quite likely to take offence. You get a response, and that's rather nice.